Hey guys, it's Faye from Solar Flow, and I am back with an all-new video. Today's topic is a mini behind the veil energy read into Coco Chanel. So if this sounds good to you, please stick around, and if not, I will catch you at another video. Now, before we get into the energy reading portion with her, I'm going to start by sharing some three-dimensional information into her. And the purpose in doing this is not because I don't think that people have heard of who she herself was, Coco Chanel, or because I think that people are not necessarily familiar with her fashion brand, Chanel, because I think arguably her brand is one of the most well-known luxury brands currently on the market. But it's more so that way we can get a little bit more of an understanding as to who a person was or is on a three-dimensional level, because sometimes the energy reading portion really does connect who they were in any given lifetime. And I'm actually going to do something that I don't ordinarily do, because if you've been here for a while, you know that I will typically only share the first paragraph that's written on a person's Wikipedia page. Because anyone that's a public figure, or certainly an actor or an actress or a prolific fashion designer such as Coco Chanel, their Wikipedia page can be rather extensive. And to the best of my knowledge, ain't nobody here to hear me read what is written on somebody's Wikipedia page. You're really here for the goods that the guides bring. So I typically will only share the first paragraph. However, in this case, I am going to actually share a little bit more about Coco's life, because it does actually pertain and connect to some of the information that had come in the energy reading portion. Now, I'm also going to share with you guys, in full disclosure, I typically will not ever do any level of three-dimensional research into a person's energy or a topic before looking into them on an energetic level. And all of the information that I acquire about them happens after I have looked into their energy. However, I find Coco Chanel to be a fascinating person. I don't know if you guys can see it, I actually have a book on her, the little white book over there. I have a book on her. And I've also read other books about Coco Chanel, and I also, in fact, had seen a very, very fantastic movie that is called Coco Avant Chanel. I think it's French. I think it means Coco before Chanel, which is a fantastic movie. If you guys haven't seen it, I definitely recommend watching it. So this is not a case where I'm going into a person's energy completely blind, because I do know a little bit about the topic at hand. And maybe I'm honest to a fault, I don't fucking know, but I just felt the need to share that with you guys so you would know that it's not like she's a complete stranger to me. I mean, I don't think she's a complete stranger to anybody, but outside of just our anecdotal knowledge of her fashion brand, I do actually know a little bit more about her. So, do with that what you will. So let's start with some three-dimensional information into the life of Coco Chanel before we get into the energy read on her. Gabrielle Bonheur Coco Chanel, born on August 19th, 1883, and had crossed over on January 10th, 1971, was a French fashion designer and businesswoman who popularized a sporty, casual, chic style for women after World War I. Her designs emphasized simplicity and comfort, and she is known for her timeless designs, trademark suits, and little black dresses. Every girl knows we need a proper LBD. Chanel herself became a style icon known for simple yet sophisticated outfits paired with great accessories. She is the only fashion designer listed in Time magazine's list of the 100 most influential people in the 20th century. A prolific fashion creator, she extended her influence beyond couture clothing and into jewelry, handbags, and fragrances. And she was really ahead of her time in doing so, because back then fashion houses really just kind of stuck to their wheelhouse which was clothing, but she really branched out. Her signature scent, Chanel No. 5, has become an iconic product in its own right, and she designed her famed interlocking CC monogram, which has been used since the 1920s. Now, Coco Chanel was not born into the lap of luxury. Oh no. She was born to poor parents. Some could even make the case like dirt poor. I think I had read that her father was a traveling textile salesman. This family did not come from money. She really did not grow up in the lap of luxury. Later on, she had found employment as a seamstress, but she also had dreams of making it as a cabaret star. And this is where she had acquired the nickname Coco, as she often sang a song, quote, "Who has seen Coco?" end quote. She performed in the famed Moulin Rouge, which is where she had met a young ex-cavalry officer and textile heir by the name of Etienne Balsan, and she went on to become his mistress. Now, I don't think in this case mistress means the association we have with it in modern day times. I don't think it's because he was married and she was his mistress. I think it's just to say that they went on to become romantically involved. During their time together, they lived a life of decadence together, where Gabrielle was showered with a lot of nice things. So she kind of had like her comeuppance, one could say. In 1908, she began an affair, again, not as in married, an affair, a sexual affair with a married man, as in a sexual liaison, with one of Balsam's friends, somebody named Arthur Edward Boy, that was his nickname, Boy Capel. And Boy Capel was a wealthy Englishman who had installed Coco into an apartment in Paris. So she has another comeuppance again. And he also financed her first fashion shops. Despite her hopes that they would settle down together, Capel was not faithful to her during the course of their sexual relationship, and he was also not faithful to his wife, because after the time that he had married, he had continued to carry on and have a sexual relationship with Coco Chanel. He had crossed over in a car accident, and it was one in which she had said she never got over. He was like the love of her life. During World War II, she closed her shops and took up residency in a hotel where she met a baron and a German aristocrat, and she began an affair with him. Now, according to one of her biographers, Coco Chanel was a vicious, these are his words, not mine, quote, "a vicious anti-Semite who praised Hitler," end quote. And she was, it's not clear if she knowingly was involved in German intelligence or if she was unknowingly used, but she was in one way or another linked to German intelligence operations. She never married and she never had kids. So at the time of her crossing over, most of her estate went to her nephew. Now, at the time that she had crossed over in 1971, her nephew had inherited approximately $100 million, which in its own right is certainly nothing to sneeze at. It's not like chump change. It's not like anyone's walking around with $100 million in change in their pocket, right? But again, this was 1971, and you know, we all know inflation and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I wonder what $100 million by 1971 standards it's worth today. So by 2024 standards, $100 million is roughly the equivalent of $7 billion $766 million and change. Today, her fashion brand is worth $19.4 billion. So, that concludes the 3D exploration into some material information on the life of Coco Chanel. We are now going to start the energy read on her. However, before I do, if you are new here, welcome. I would encourage you to please check out my other work, and if you enjoy it, to subscribe. And if at any point while watching this video you find that you are enjoying it, please click the like button down below, because it really does help my channel grow and it helps me continue to create more fantastic energy reading content for you guys. And with that said, let's dive right on in. So Coco Chanel. As soon as I connected to Coco Chanel's energy, which if you've been here for a while, you've actually heard me say took fucking forever, because she did not want to come into me, and I think I wore her down with my persistence, and she was like, okay, if I come in, will you leave me alone? Yes. So as soon as I connected to her energy, or as soon as she finally came into me, she clucked her tongue at me, kind of like going at the way I was dressed. But I came to understand it wasn't entirely a reference to how I was dressed, but it was more a reflection of society and how far, in her opinion, women's fashion has devolved, and in some ways, us with it. Now, to be fair, as an aside, I was wearing shorts and a tank top while I channeled her, because it was hot and it was the summer, and that happens to be what I sleep in, and I usually channel before I go to bed. Not that I'm saying this because I give a fig about what Coco Chanel thinks about me and my fashion choices, or my lack thereof. I don't care. It's just more to illuminate to you guys that, again, she is making it more about looking at me as a representation of the lens of all of society as a whole right now. Because back in her day, women were not going to sleep in tank tops and shorts, that's for damn sure. Now, she shared with me that it is her opinion that it is not necessarily about the way in which she dressed women. So as in, you either wear Coco Chanel or you're nobody, you're like dead to her. It wasn't like that. It's not like if you didn't wear Coco Chanel's fashion, you might as well be like a pauper on the street and you had no sense of style whatsoever. But it was more that she was saying societally at that time, not just through society through the lens of how Coco Chanel chose to dress women, but society overall at that time in her day, even the so-called out of style, quote unquote, woman, had a sense of decorum. So it wasn't about the clothing, it wasn't about fashion, it was more about the way that women chose to adorn their bodies. And that she shared with me, women at that time had a sense of decorum, mystery, and allure. And that at that time, women were not giving everything away for nothing like they do now. And maybe it's because women back then respected themselves more, and maybe how today we don't. Now, this is where I'm going to share with you guys, as I've shared in some of my other videos, but in case you're new here, when I'm looking into the energy of a person, it's not, the communication that we have is more telepathic, if you will. it's not where the person is verbally sharing information with me the way I am verbally sharing information with you at this time. Because when it's energy, it's kind of like the wind. And if you think about the wind and you think about a chain link fence, is a chain link fence going to hold the wind back? No. A building is not even going to hold the wind back. All a building is going to do is divert the wind around the energy. All the building is going to do is divert the wind around the building. But they're not obstacles for wind in exactly the same way that there's no obstacles for the exchange of energetic information or the exchange of energetic communication. So because of that fact, and she doesn't need to, especially because she's crossed over, she's not verbally talking to me where I'm picking up on what she's saying. It's completely laid bare. Ahem. And here I go again, hemming at the truth. I can't, guys, I can't stage this. I can't orchestrate losing my voice at exactly a certain time to ahem and enunciate the point of what I'm saying is the truth. So when it's some sort of a energetic exchange or energetic communication, all thoughts are laid bare. So I can see her thoughts, she can see my thoughts, and therefore the communication is more akin to telepathy. It's telepathic communication because there's no need for words. So as she was sharing this with me, I was able to get insight into what are some of the opinions and thoughts that she has on the matter, in what is leading to her assess the way in which women today dress, where she is concluding it's because maybe women ourselves don't respect ourselves, or we certainly don't seem to live for ourselves if we dress in a way in which it seems like we just want people to look at us. So, what were some of the thoughts that were in her mind, or some of her observations as somebody that's being on the other side, is some of the way, I live in a big city. So if you maybe live in a more rural community, maybe this is not necessarily something that you yourselves are observing. But again, her being pure energy and not having the confines of being restricted to one particular location on the globe, she can see everything. So what are some of the things she's referencing that I myself have seen is, it's kind of even questionable why women would choose to wear shorts on top of their panties, because the shorts that they're wearing are so high cut on their ass that their ass cheeks are hanging out of their shorts. Or another thing she was showing to me is where a woman will choose to wear a bra, but it's not the right size to contain the tatas. So let's say it's a woman that's a C or a D or a double D, and she's wearing a bra that's actually meant for an A cup kind of a woman. So there's going to be spillage. There's going to be significant spillage over the top, out the sides, maybe out the bottom. And also, what are some other things she's referencing where women would be wearing incredibly low cut tops, or wearing skirts where there's a slit that goes so high up that you can actually see London and France if they're even wearing any underpants. So while she is sharing all of this with me, I'm getting telepathic insight, if you will, into what are some of the things that she is referencing. And this is it. It's from her perspective, why are women dressing in a way where we can see everything practically? Or here's something that just happened to me last week. I was out and about. I was in a parking lot going into a store, and there was a girl, and this is 2% personal anecdotal experiences of mine. This is not what she shared. And you will also know it's never source that's sharing things like this, because source is not judgmental, and I'm a human being on the 3D material plane, and I sometimes am. But I was just last week in a parking lot going into a store, and not hanging out in a parking lot, but I was in a parking lot before I went into a store, and there was a girl getting out of a car, and she was wearing one of those, I guess it's called a bodycon dress. What's a bodycon dress? They're incredibly tight. So it's kind of you're glued into them. You can't even eat a single chickpea if you want to fit into a bodycon dress. Now, personally, I think bodycon dresses are incredibly sexy, but this was like a bodycon bodysuit and not a dress, and it had like a zipper. So the zipper was zipped past her breasts, and she was spilling out, not wearing a bra, spilling out into the opening of the bodycon dress. And because it was a bodysuit, bodycon, not dress, it was like a bodycon short. And again, it was so short that it's like, girl, it was like she was wearing a thong bodycon bodysuit. I don't even know if there was panties on under there. So it's kind of like these examples like this, in which Coco Chanel is saying that it seems from her point of view, maybe women today don't respect themselves because it's not like we're really dressing for ourselves anymore, or obviously not all of us, but certainly people that are choosing to adorn their body in this way, are they really dressing for themselves, or are they dressing that way because they want to be seen and they just want people to look at them? And if that's the case and they just want people to look at them, then it's almost like she's making the case they don't live for themselves. They only live for others. So in some ways, it's like when women are choosing to dress this way, they're failing to exist without the potential attention that they seek to get when they dress this way and go out in public. So she's asking me rhetorically, could it be? Could our sense of self-identity in some way be connected to fashion? And from her point of view, yes. And that's why she took her role as a fashion designer very seriously in the way she wanted to present opportunities for women to adorn their bodies. And what was her big contribution, right? Like according to her Wikipedia page, what was she so well known for? It was the fact that her style and her designs emphasized simplicity and comfort. And she was known for her timeless designs, trademark suits, and little black dresses. Because at the time that she became a fashion designer, the world was kind of metamorphosizing and evolving away from women wearing, those very, very long dresses down to their ankles and petticoats and being all buttoned up to their necklines. So she was more, through her designs, giving women the opportunity to dress for themselves and to dress functionally and to dress with comfort. And she's saying, look at this departure. I created clothing for women so they could dress for themselves and to stop dressing for other people. And now look where we are. Society and fashion has completely devolved where women are no longer even dressing for themselves anymore. They're really only dressing for other people. So this is the devolution that she is speaking of. So it's at this time, after she shares this with me, that I comment to her that she is quite introspective, and this is not necessarily something that I had anticipated prior to connecting to her energy. So she told me maybe it's because people were built differently back then, like during her time. Maybe it's because she was European. And maybe Europeans are just a little bit more introspective than Americans. Maybe it's because people at that time had lived through certainly one world war, and towards the later years in her life, she had survived 2 world wars. So she's saying maybe the survival of 2 world wars, the world is just going to produce hardier stock kind of people that are going to be prone to being a little bit more introspective. So it's at this time where she's sharing with me her thoughts on why maybe she turned out to be introspective, right? Maybe it's the fact that she grew up dirt poor. Maybe it's the fact that she survived through 2 world wars. Maybe it's, a reflection of the world and the people that was produced at that time. So it kind of got me thinking, because I'm speaking with a woman that was born, she's born in 1800, guys. Like, that's wild if you think about it. So I wanted to get a sense from her of what, through the course of her life, what the world was like from her perspective. So I asked her, what was it like for her back then? And she tells me, simpler. So despite the fact that she was born poor as dirt, despite the fact that she survived 2 world wars, despite the fact that she came from nothing and then she went on to have something and to achieve success as a fashion designer and as a fashion icon, according to her, the world at that time was far more simple. Because no one knew about anyone else the way we do now, or about other parts of the world. We all have cell phones in our pocket. We can get notifications on our phone about something that happens on the other side of the globe. Does it actually have to do with us? Do we actually need to know about it? And then we have, WhatsApp, and we have FaceTime, and it allows for instant communication with people on the other side of the globe from us. So back then, no one had these things, and no one knew about anyone else the way we do now, or about events that were happening on the other side of the world. Like, imagine even being in a world war and not even knowing what was going on the way we do now. Like, if there's a war going on, I'm not even talking about a world war. Like, I remember Operation Desert Storm. When the war had launched, it was like in the somewhere between 2000 and, I don't know, maybe 2005, somewhere around there. And I remember watching it on TV and watching a war happening on TV. And I remember thinking to myself, this doesn't actually make any sense. How is this a war if we can watch it on TV? Like, if we can watch it on TV, that means that the people in this region of the world, they can watch it too, and they know exactly what's going on. Like, there's no mystery involved in a world war even, for better or for worse. Maybe some of us are gonna make the claim that it's better if we have all of this overexposure to it, and maybe it's not better. But wars can now be fought on TV in front of our eyes, or what they're presenting to us as a war in front of our eyes. They didn't have that back then. They lived through a war and they had no knowledge of what was actually going on in the war that they were experiencing firsthand. So nobody knew about events that was happening in other parts of the war, other parts of the world. So all you knew was yourself, your life, and your day. And one could only hope that they would make it through their day with enough food to eat. But dreaming, that was a luxury that people back in her day didn't even have. Because no one had time to dream or to think about a better life for themselves, because they were also involved with their survival. So she shares with me, she never dreamed of becoming a fashion designer or becoming a fashion icon of a luxury brand. All she wanted was to acquire a skill so maybe she could live a little bit better. And that's why she went on to become a seamstress. And the rest outside of that, according to her, was just fate. Now, if you've been here for a while, you know that fate is not a spiritual term that we would use, or certainly not one that I would use, because what might appear to be fate to the spiritually disinclined would in fact be more akin to a soul contract that somebody is going to experience in any particular incarnation, or would be perhaps the cashing in on karmic blessings. Because not all of the karmic so-called shit that we experience with other people is not positive. Some of it is incredibly positive, and when we, as the cosmic creator of our own realities, as the directors of our incarnations, and as the scriptwriters in the stories of the lives that we play out, we can write in the collection of blessings that we have accumulated from past lifetimes. So where she's using this word fate, that's getting my mind all activated as an energy reader and as a practitioner of these spiritual concepts and as a sharer and teacher of them. So I'm hearing the word fate and I'm like, So I ask her if she knows about soul contracts. And maybe her becoming a world-renowned fashion designer and fashion icon was hers. So she's thoughtful and she thinks about it for a moment. And then she responds and she tells me that where she is now, as in on the other side, there are many opportunities where she can see such things, but it is something that she has not yet had any interest in seeing. And I was like, okay, that's interesting. Why? And she tells me it's because she has no plans on coming back to the earth plane, and no, not ever. So because she has no plans on coming back here, she doesn't really see the point and the purpose in learning about soul contracts and karmic shit, both of the positive and not so positive variety. So it's like, what's the fuck, she's not going to use the word fuck, but it's kind of like, what's the point in all of this? I don't have any plans of coming back to this earth plane again, so why look into these concepts that will be of meaning or signification or importance to her soul? And the reason she shared with me that she does not plan on coming back to the earth plane in a subsequent incarnation ever is due to the fact that she had a life, had a good one at some points, she will admit. However, much in her life as Coco Chanel gives her serious pause in ever wanting to come back here again. Therefore, she has no desire to come back and to struggle again, because she did. And she has no desire to come back again and to be so unsure of herself or to experience such profound heartbreak again. And she thinks that those of us that do, as in those of us that do agree to come back for multiple and subsequent follow-up incarnations, we are just remarkable for doing so. And that maybe, in fact, we are all really the hardier ones and the hardier stock. And maybe it in fact has nothing to do with a particular time period or a particular generation or particular events that on a worldwide level and a worldwide scale, such as a world war, that one would live through. So she's kind of reflecting on it, and she's saying now, who's to say what creates the hardier stock people? Because maybe it's not the fact that she, as Coco Chanel, lived through world wars and she grew up poor as dirt. Maybe what actually makes somebody hardy is the fact that they will come back for subsequent incarnations because she has made the choice not to. And because of that, maybe there's also nothing to entice her back again, because the loves that she has had have already moved on, and there's no point in her coming back again without them. So this is where she's sharing with me without saying the actual words, but she's sharing with me, boy Capel, the love of her life, his soul has already moved on from the earth plane, and he's not coming back for any future subsequent incarnations. She doesn't want to come back without him. She doesn't want to experience a life without experiencing it with him, because she feels she didn't get to experience the full life that they would have had, because A, he was married to somebody else, and because he had crossed over at a relatively young age in a car accident. So it's like she struggled. She doesn't want to come back and struggle again. She lost the loves of her life, and she doesn't get to come back with them again. So it's like, what's the point? Why come back again? So she's saying she is Coco Chanel. She's not built of the hardier stock, despite what she said at the beginning, despite her life experiences, despite what she lived through. Maybe she's introspective. Maybe she's not hardy, because she ain't coming back here again. And those of us that agreed to come back here again, we're the ones that are built of the hardier stock. So now that she's kind of touching on the fact that she's on the other side without the love of her life, but she is free from the confines of the experiences that she had here on the earth plane, I ask her what it is like for her on the other side. And I'm curious if there is any sense of pressure or expectation for her to come back, as in to come back and have another incarnation when she has already shared she has no plans to ever again. And she tells me none. On the other side, first of all, it is peaceful and it is calm. And no souls interfere or intervene in another soul's process or their existence. So it's not like there's other souls breathing down around your neck and it's like, oh, hey, you've been here for 50 years, looking at the watch, get the fuck out of here. We got to make room for some other new souls to come in. No. It's peaceful. It's calm. It's kind of, if you will, the ultimate live and let live, or like how I like to refer to it, like you do you, boo. It's the ultimate you do you, boo on the other side. So she asks me rhetorically then, why would she choose to leave something good, as in where she is right now is good. So why would she choose to leave something good for nothing that won't be as good? Because she feels coming back here just will not be as good. And to that rhetorical question on her part, I have no response to that. This concludes. I never really know like a clean, concise way to end the energy reading portion. So sometimes it's just kind of like, it's rough. It's like I'm just slipping in there without lube. So that was kind of rough, but you know what? We're nearly 40 minutes in. I'm not going to start re-recording this whole video, because the end was not quite so clean and polished, like one of Madame Chanel's stitching on her magnificent garments. But this concludes the energy reading portion on Coco Chanel. I hope that the wait was worth it. I hope that you have enjoyed it and found this video to be interesting or insightful, maybe even thought-provoking. And I remind you to please take what resonates and to leave the rest behind. And as always, and until next time, this is your reminder to stay in the high vibration.